My name's Cath from Gunby. I'll be your chair for today. I'm the Executive Director of Fidra, and for those of you who don't know Fidra, we're an environmental charity based in Scotland. We use the best available science and work with a range of stakeholders to achieve meaningful reductions in threats to the environment from pollution and habitat degradation. So this webinar, we'll be discussing the UK furniture and furnishings fire safety regulations and opportunities for achieving effective and sustainable fire safety without chemical flame retardants. So we'll also be covering the importance of increased chemical transparency and traceability throughout the furniture supply chain in order to support the circular economy. So we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers and panelists today from industry, academics and NGOs, both from within the UK and outside. So good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are. Our hope is that these discussions will contribute to the debate, provide valuable evidence needed to inform regulations going forward, and generate ideas that ultimately lead to solutions that reduce our reliance on chemical flame retardants. Do have a couple of apologies for today's sessions. So Professor Richard Hull is unlikely to make the session. However, Dr. Jake Lane's kindly offered to step in and present his research if he doesn't make it in time. So thanks very much for that, Jake, much appreciated. We also didn't receive the recording on time from the European Furniture Industries Confederation, EFIC, but we will be able to share their manifesto. And of course, everyone, certainly in the UK, is well aware that we are in the middle of an election, which means that the policymakers are unable to attend this event due to election rules. However, they have requested us to provide them with information post-election. So we will be recording all of the webinar for internal purposes, and subject to approval from speakers, we'll be sharing recordings of the talks afterwards. We'll also be producing a summary report with key discussion points. There are, during the agenda, structured slots for questions, so do please put questions in the chat as you go along, and we'll do our best to come to those in the Q&A sessions. So we'll have speakers and then Q&A sessions. If we haven't managed to get to all the questions, we'll do our best to answer them after the event. So apologies in advance if we don't manage to get to all of your questions. So the agenda, I think, is coming up on the screen. So just to say that we will have 3 presentations followed by a short Q&A, a panel discussion on how we can achieve sustainable fire safety within the UK furniture sector. Then we'll have a couple more presentations followed by Q&A and a second panel discussion, which will focus on circular economy before we wrap up and close the webinar. So I think that's all of the housekeeping bits and bobs from me. So without further ado, I think I'd like us to have as much chance as possible to get to those questions that I hope you're going to put in the chat. So I'd like to introduce my colleague who's our first speaker of the day, and that's Dr. Joanna Cloy. So Jo has a PhD in environmental geochemistry. She joined Fidra after 16 years of working as a soil researcher. Her key areas of interest are environmental pollution, agricultural soil greenhouse gas emissions, carbon and nutrient dynamics. Jo is keen to help find solutions for tackling chemical and plastic pollutions through her role as Senior Project Manager at Fidra, and we're very lucky to have her with us. So Jo, can you start by giving us an introduction to the furniture and furnishing regulations and changes that are needed to protect the environment?
Thanks, Cath. Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm just going to give a really quick overview of the UK furniture and furnishings regulations and the changes that are really needed to these outdated regulations in order to protect people and the environment and hopefully reduce our reliance on chemical flame retardants. So the UK's reliance on chemical flame retardants, not just in furniture products, of course, but furniture products are a very important component of chemical flame retardant usage. And it results in high exposure rates to humans and the environment. And the UK has some of the most significant rates of exposure. And there's growing evidence connecting these chemicals to human and environmental health concerns, not to mention concerns around the challenges of handling persistent organic pollutants in waste furniture. So the outdated regulations were introduced in 1988. Progressive furniture and mattress industries are seeking alternative means of achieving fire safety, as there's many studies connecting the UK's stringent regulations in furniture fire safety with these health concerns that we're going to hear more about during this webinar. And it's great that furniture industries are doing this, but we really need these regulations to be updated. And there's been delays, there's been consultations in 2014, 2016, and 2023. And of course, we're still waiting for the revised furniture and furnishings fire safety regulations. And many stakeholders responded to the consultation last year, and we were expecting a response from government actually this summer. But of course, we know that we're going to have to keep being patient and wait for that. But the new FFRs are a unique opportunity to move away from chemical flame retardants, but they must support sustainable design and innovation. The proposed essential safety requirements must be met using smouldering and flaming ignition sources. So perhaps there's some barriers there, but there's also opportunities such as the final product testing and chemical labeling proposals. So I'm sure we'll end up talking about some of these things. When the consultation documents were released, there were supporting documents like the draft standard, impacts on businesses, and a fire risks report that included really useful UK fire death rate statistics. And this figure here shows the number of fire-related deaths per 100,000 people between 1990 and 2019. So of course, when these current very prescriptive regulations were in place. But you can see that the UK, with its stringent flammability regulations, has fire death rates in line with those in other countries. So are the FFRs actually effective? And this slide just gives a summary of some of the recommendations that Fidra would really like to be seen in the revised regulations. For example, quantifiable reductions in chemical flame retardant use and improved flammability testing to reflect modern furniture and support sustainable, innovative design. And of course, chemical transparency is crucial to ensure safe reuse and disposal of products, as well as ensuring that there aren't regrettable substitutions in terms of chemicals. And this infographic finally just highlights the issues of persistent organic pollutants in waste furniture, as well as the exposure of people and wildlife to the chemicals that are used, or harmful chemicals, in some cases, that are used in furniture. So we really do need a holistic approach to cover all of these implications. And a wide range of stakeholders, of course, are affected by the use of chemical flame retardants in furniture and mattress products. So that's me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Joe. That's a really good start and a really good overview for people to, I think, get their heads around where the UK's at in terms of the FFRs.